David Brewster here again with another episode of Chordplay, and this is the chords of Eric Johnson. And Eric's a very unique and talented guitarist, and as soon as I heard his music for the very first time, it caught my ear, and I heard some people talking about him, and he started popping up in guitar magazines, and I was like, who's this Eric Johnson guy? And then when I finally heard his music, I was very impressed, and honestly, that was before I'd even heard Close to Dover. I just heard songs like Zap and Victory and Bristol Shore and some of that stuff. And then by the time I heard Close to Dover, I was like, this guy is unbelievable. And he's a very eclectic musician. His influences are kind of scattered everywhere. I mean, he loves Hendrix and people like Jeff Beck. He also loves people like Wes Montgomery and Chet Atkins and Jerry Reed. Um, so when you hear him play guitar, it's like this uh, kind of a collage of all these great guitarists, and he kind of mined, the style and the chord vocabulary and the licks and the approaches that all those guitarists, had and used, and then Eric kind of assembled those ideas in his own way, and then he kind of regurgitated that with his own, unique voice and unique style. I did get to finally see Eric Johnson in concert last year at the Vogue Theater, and he was on the anniversary tour of Musicom, and I was so thrilled to finally see him in concert. I got to meet him after the show, which was great. I was just so humbled and happy that I was like, I finally got to see Eric, and I actually got to meet him too. And it was a great, great show. I mean, it was just flawless. It was like, gosh, his tone, his playing. He's such a nice guy. So, you know, just kind of quiet and reserved in a very intellectual, you can tell he's a very intelligent person, just by listening to him talk or hearing him play music. It's like, wow, that guy is exceptional. I mean, there's just something about him. He has a very large chord vocabulary. He has a lot of voicings and interesting things that he does, and I love the way not only he locates and uses chords, but also the chord progressions and the way he kind of assembles these sounds together. It really, it kind of comes to life, and when you listen to him play guitar, it does. It noticeably sounds very different than most guitarists. The way he orchestrates and kind of arranges chords and the voicings. So we're going to tap into some of that with this lesson. So to kick things off here, we're going to just target a sound and a particular chord that Eric, seems to really like, because it does pop up in a lot of his music. And those are major ninth chords, or major nine. So if you're familiar with ninth chords, don't think of like the funk chords. Not that kind of ninth. We're going to do a major nine, and there's a couple different ways we can find this, on the guitar. There is an interesting shape that lives right here, where you've got the second fret on the D, fourth fret on the G, second fret on the B, and the fourth fret on the high E. Now, if you arrange those notes and also use the open A string, so just that sound of that chord, that's an A major 9. It has a very spacious, kind of dreamy sound. I really like that chord. But Eric really does seem fond of that particular chord type. So let's unlock a couple other voicings and versions of that chord. So there's that. Now we could also play an A major 9 over C sharp if we arrange it like this. Now that's a much stretchier shape, and we're also going to use the open B and high E. But when you kind of fan that chord out, there's the fourth fret there, which is C sharp. There's the sixth fret, which is G sharp. There's the second fret, which is A, and then we've got the open B and the open high E. Really interesting chord, very, different, very modern sounding, not a traditional sound at all. And if you compare that with what we started with, you can hear how they're somewhat related, but they are different. Different voicings for sure. So if we take these two shapes and kind of discover that flavor of those major 9 chords, we can locate and find a couple other voicings for this shape. Here's another Eric Johnson approved major major 9 voicing. And there we're basically barring the 4th fret. You've got the 5th fret on the B, and then you're stretching up and grabbing the 7th on the D and the 7th on the high E. It would basically be like an A add 9 over C sharp. Now if we take that chord and remove the 4th fret on the A string and just play the A string open, then it magically becomes an A sus2. And then if we take the 3rd finger there that's on the 7th fret on the D, if we move that down a half step and basically grab a G sharp, then that magically becomes an A major 7 sus2. So there was A sus2, A major 7 sus2. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this A major 9 chord that we found right here, and we're basically just going to maintain that shape and move around the fretboard to uncover, some different chords. So we're going to, do a little bit of chord play right here. And just move it up 1 fret, then it would become an A minor add 11 flat 5, which is a really strange chord. Now if we continue moving that chord shape higher on the neck, we're going to unlock and discover all these really unique chords. The 14th fret, I'm basically just an octave higher than where I started. But you can see there's all of these interesting shapes that you can kind of uncover just by moving that 1 fingering. Stuff. Now let's do the same thing, but let's flip those major 9s to minor 9s and see what happens. So we can find an A minor 9 right here, which is going to feel kind of similar to what we started with, just a little different voicing. So there we've got the 2nd fret on the D, the 4th fret on the G, the 1st fret on the B, and the 3rd fret on the high E, and that's an A minor 9. Okay, very moody and different flavor compared to this, right? The major relatives get a little different zing to it, I guess. So there's the minor version, right? So let's take that and just kind of move around. Let's just move it up a few frets. There I've moved my middle finger to the 4th fret. So that'd be like an A6 add 11 just by moving that up like this. Really interesting. Let's move it up 1 more fret. Really interesting chord. Very unsettling, sinister sound. And there I'm on the 7th fret. Let's move it up another whole step. There's on the 9th fret with your middle finger. Right? Pretty cool. If we keep going, move it up to the 11th fret there. Of course there, when I get to the 14th fret with my middle finger, I'm an octave higher than when we started. But once again, there's a really interesting kind of chord discovery, exercise you can kind of play around with right there. Another thing that Eric likes to do with chords, kind of a secret weapon, is he loves open-voiced chords and arpeggios. And there seems to be a little confusion over closed voice and open voice, so I'm going to try to explain this kind of, painlessly. Hopefully this won't freak anybody out. But when you arrange the notes of a chord within an octave, that's known as closed voice. Now, most traditional chords that you hear, like just triads, like there's A, C sharp, and E. That's just an A major triad. But those 3 notes in the triad are spaced very close together, right? They're very tight and kind of packed together within a single octave. think of, now that's an example of closed voice, but when you think of open voiced, you're basically taking the notes of a chord, and instead of confining them to a single octave, you're spreading them beyond an octave. So instead of doing, you know, A, C sharp, and E like that, which would be closed, if we want to open that up, let's play it this way. And there would be A, E, and then we're going to stick the C sharp way up on top in a different octave compared to this. Because there the C sharp is literally right beside that A. It's just a third away. But if we put that C sharp up an octave, then we've suddenly opened up the sound of that chord, or created an open-voiced chord voicing. Because those notes are spread out, right? And you can do this all over the fretboard. There I just played a few more versions of that chord. You know, there's A, there's another A right here. Now I put C sharp on the bass, and then here I put E in the bass right there. Kind of started from that little triad right there. And we're going to play with that in the key of A major. So we're just going to harmonize the key. And really all this means is we're going to take the single notes of an A major scale and build a chord or a triad off of each one. All right, so think of A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and A. That's A major. If we build chords off of each note in that scale, we would have this. We'd have A major, and we're going to space these, you know, with open-voiced kind of arpeggio fingerings or chord fingerings. So right there we've got, you know, the open A, the E, and the C sharp, and we're going to play it like that. And then the next chord would be B minor. The next chord would be C sharp minor. And then D major, F sharp minor, G sharp diminished, and then A major again. The chords arranged in the key of A major, and if we kind of pick through them like an arpeggio and add a little vibrato to the highest note, it instantly sounds like you're playing something from Eric Johnson. You can definitely hear Eric playing this in the famous Cliffs of Dover, and the opening guitar solo features this little kind of ascending, you know, melodic, open-voiced arpeggio idea. And, you know, really arpeggios are just the notes of a chord played separate. So even though we're playing this more as like a melodic arpeggio idea, they're still chords, you know, at the end of the day. So the first shape, that's kind of an E minor over G, like that. And then we're just basically moving to A minor. And then we're moving to a G over B, and then a C, and then a D. And he does something like this. So he's really just kind of playing with those open-voiced arpeggios. Right, and kind of resolves it to that G before he starts doing that little pedal point thing. Right? So it's interesting. That's going to wrap this episode of Chordplay up. And honestly, Eric Johnson has so many chords in his vocabulary, and he's done so many interesting things with chords in his music. I could probably make like 2 or 3 more episodes just focusing on Eric Johnson as far as chordplay, because his knowledge and his ability, you know, of kind of uncovering and using and connecting these chords together is just, I mean, it's marvelous. I mean, it's very inspiring to hear him put, you know, some of these ideas and chords together in his music. Thanks for watching, and be sure to leave me some feedback and some comments, and please subscribe to Late Night Lessons. And I'll be back with another episode of Chordplay before you know it. Thank you.